for being here. To tell you, Charlie,
Yes,
it's a pleasure to have you guys. Let's go on and introduce ourselves. Let's go. To Tavio, introduce yourself. Tell us, tell everybody who you are.
My name is Datavio Samuels. I am the CEO of Revolt TV and Media. Happy to be here. Love what you're doing, brother. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Charlie.
Sure. Hello, Mark Datavio. Pleasure to be here. I am a criminal defense attorney. I specialize in try to keep brothers and sisters out of prison. I also teach part-time at Rutgers University as a part-time lecturer. And in that work, I teach in the prisons, individuals, mostly young or old men that are doing sentences for extensive periods of time, and with the hope that once they're released, they get admitted into a college automatically. And I'm just happy to be here. I also have a podcast called Charlie Not Charles podcast,
awesome.
In which we talk about current events, culture, existentialism, everything.
Cool, amazing. All right, so thank you for being here. Welcome. Let's dive in. I know you guys read the book. We're gonna talk about chapter, I believe 7 and 8. Love your parents, love your children, and I think the other one was generational pain. My father's son.
Generational pain.
Let's. I'm gonna start with Charlie. So love your parents, love your children. What does that mean to you?
Man, love your parents, love your children. It talks to me about a deeper love, which is almost it teeters around unconditional love, which is to view the person or the child, the parent, through a holistic lens, right? And I've had to really, and I apologize for that motorcycle. I had to really understand who my father was without having that one-on-one conversation. Unfortunately, my father passed away when I was only 6 years old. So in wanting to love him, I had to know who he was, understand his journey, his desires, his ambitions, and also his faults, his flaws. And, with my living mother, I do the same. And I think that teaches, and hopefully when I do have children, because I don't have children yet, I'm practicing though, but when I do, I feel that my love for my mother, this unconditional love that I have for my mother, that I can argue with her and we can go back and forth and I still know that the love is present. I think that's only going to enhance my future relationship with my children.
Definitely. Detavio.
Yeah, I love that. I was definitely going to anchor mine in this idea of unconditional love as well. That there's so many people we meet that we choose to love. When we talk about our children and we talk about our parents, these are people who God gave us, right? And I believe that that has to be rooted in unconditional love. And a couple of things that are important to me in that journey is understanding is how love for them changes as a child grows up, how love might need to be different or look different for your parents as your parents get older, how that changes. I lost my father last year, and if you compare the love and what love looked like as a 10-year-old and as a 20-year-old, it was a little bit different as a 39-year-old walking him towards the end of his life. And so I just think we have to be conscious of how unconditional love changes and shapes over time is a big thing for me. And then the other thing is, for me, unconditional love, I believe that we often step into spaces and we are faced with choices. And that choice to me is fear or love. And so when it comes to family, mother, father, child, I'm always making sure I choose love in those interactions and not fear. And so that thing is also just kind of like a guiding step for me as I think about the conversation.
Awesome. Yeah. You guys both touch on unconditional love, which I talked about in the book. I think that the misconception that comes with unconditional love, we can love everyone unconditionally, right? But that also comes with boundaries. It also comes with understanding. Nobody's gonna be perfect. You know what I mean? But just understanding that in their imperfection, you still love them, right? Regardless of how they are, how they raised you. When it comes to your parents, you still have to love them whether they were great parents or not, because again, you never knew what they might have gone through. You know what I'm saying? So having that unconditional love, that's definitely a big thing, for sure.
Yeah, And I think just kind of on your note of imperfection, which I love that's in the book, there's a Japanese idea called wabi sabi, and it is the idea that things are beautiful because they are imperfect, because it is the cracks and the scars makes something beautiful. And so I think, just into your point, just looking at our family, knowing that they're imperfect, but finding beauty in the imperfections, I think is a valuable thing to do.
Definitely. So, I also talked about, not repeating your parents' mistakes, right? Again, they weren't perfect. So, like, what would you guys say, you had to learn, or, what did you have to do to not, be the exact replica of who your parents are or were?
Yeah, I can somewhat speak to that
Yeah.
because it's kind of bittersweet. I lost my father when I was young, but
Mm.
I learned about him through family and friends. Therefore, I was able to have an objective lens, free from his prejudices, his approach to life,
Yeah.
free from his expectations of what should I be, the person who I should become. And through that, I was able to learn more about him and how he dealt with anxiety and his journey. And within that, and how he dealt with it, he was a lot older. Like we're talking about two generations down. He had me when he
Right.
was 59. He had me when he was 59. So we're talking
Okay.
about, yeah. And so, it wasn't like, as a male, especially as a Afro-Caribbean male that
Hmm.
came to this country as an immigrant, there was so much that he had to deal with that I'm sure I cannot imagine, right? So the
Right.
way he handled stress, whether he chose to drink or smoke, I can understand it. I can understand it. He
Yeah.
he doesn't have the tools that I have, the privileges that I have, to
Right.
have people to educate me about meditation, educate me on how physical daily exercise is not for just vanity, but it's
Right.
for your
Right.
sanity,
Yeah.
and the fact that, and also I have good positive role models, and so, and my understanding is that he didn't. So I see that, and I'm not just gonna go out here and be like, oh, like my father used to drink, my father used to smoke, my father had kids, all over the place. I'm gonna do that because that's a part of my lineage.
Right.
No,
Right. Right. Right.
I'm not gonna choose that. I know what my privileges are, and when you know better, you do better.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely love all of that Charlie just said. For me, another piece of it, because and my father, very similar experience. So first generation American born. My father came from Jamaica, Costa Rica. Again, when we look back in history, we're looking at people who lived through Jim Crow, big civil rights moments. They didn't have the
Mhm.
opportunities that
Yeah.
we have, and so a
Right.
lot of me trying to make sure that I don't step into their mistakes is also realizing the limitations of
Mm.
their experience and therefore their advice, right? I've had opportunities my parents could have never even believed
Right.
to
Right.
exist. And so, because they lack the knowledge that I have in the experience, it is difficult for them to advise me. And so, one of the things that I have to be very conscious of is taking their advice and their love, but just
Mhm.
recognizing that their understanding is fundamentally different than mine, and
Right.
therefore there may be limits on the advice that they can really give.
Right.
Absolutely. That's growth. So let's shift over to chapter 8, which is the generational pain, right? My father's son. I've talked to a lot of young men who, they're angry at their fathers, right? As African descent men, what advice, right? Or you could speak about the book, right? What you read in the book, that you would give to young men who are, you know, angry, and I believe not just at themselves. I was one of those, but at themselves, right? And the fathers that they either didn't have, or the father who didn't take responsibility and be the type of father that they felt like they needed at the time. What would you say to that?
So much. You can just inquire so much and play devil's advocate as
Right.
someone who does criminal defense and has to show up in court as the most likable, which is an effort in my part, the
Hmm.
most likable person in order to compensate for the least likable person, which is the defendant.
Yeah.
I have to showcase the other side of who the defendant is. So I think I do a good job in my own personal life in really trying to paint a holistic picture of persons, and saying, and I'm a proponent in believing that we are all works in progress. And I think, if I was to, raise children in today's day, that would be the message. And also, we don't know what mental health, played, the culture that this person or that person was a part of. Just asking what happened, what ifs, like just keep asking questions without, being lazy with it and just coming to a quick judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I think it's about understanding that lack of forgiveness or that anger has such a big impact on you. One of my favorite quotes, and that's something that you talk about in a book. And one of my favorite quotes is this idea that to forgive is to set a prisoner free and realize that that prisoner was you. Right. And so the idea that you can be angry all you want, but it's impacting yourself. It is impacting your trajectory. It is impacting the way that you see the world. And so it is critical for us to let go of those things so that we can truly be free beings and chase life down in the way that we want to chase life down.
Absolutely. No, to be transparent, I felt like for me personally, I was angry at myself, right? Because I felt like I missed out on something that I was naturally born to get, right? To receive. Then I felt like I didn't get it. I was angry at that. You know what I mean? But then when I got to realize, what, maybe it was for the best, right? Maybe the situation would have been, maybe I would have turned out differently. You know what I'm saying? So having, accepted everything that, that had happened or didn't happen, that helped me heal, and not just for myself, but for my daughter. You know what I mean? For my relationships, for my parents now. You know what I'm saying? So I think, especially for a lot of young men and young women too, who feel like they missed out on the opportunity with, with a dad or a mom, whatever, is to forgive yourself. To understand their pain, to understand, to give grace to them, whatever they may have gone through, whatever they have, they may have been going through at the time, that they weren't able to be their best to you as the child. There was a reason. It's not because they chose it, but there was a reason that, kind of, prevent them from being the person that, you needed at the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, Mark. When I was reading, that chapter specifically, and even though you didn't mention this, but I saw it as radical forgiveness, right? Just being able to understand that there was a reason why this person impacted you in that way, and you may not be able to articulate it, but at the end, you should understand that it should make you a better person,
right?
And going back to your point about, maybe it would have turned out differently. I think to myself all the time, like, let's say if my father continued drinking and smoking in his life and he would have lived a longer life, would it have been better to have him there as a toxic father as opposed to not having them there and actually starting with a white canvas?
Yeah. It's all perception, right?
Yeah.
And getting to the place where you can accept that's healing.
Right.
Go ahead, Natalia.
And the other piece that you touched on, that I absolutely love, and where my point just now stopped, is for me, I was talking about the benefit that healing does for you, but your point that you cover in the book about that it's generational, right? And so the idea that it is important to find that healing, that it is important to find that peace, because we know trauma is passed down from generation to generation. And so if you can be the one that heals, if you can be the one to stop it, then there's a generations of impact that you can have. I think that's a huge idea.
Absolutely. I know. Yeah, we're almost out of time, but soon I'm going to make a quick point. I remember when I came here from Haiti, and in 2008, I believe, I felt like I needed to go back, right? Because I needed to learn something that I forgot, and I needed to kind of, go back to where I grew up in that little village, where my grandparents where I needed to learn, a little bit about them a little bit more, so I could kind of bring that into myself and learn, who I was at the time. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to generational, hurt or anger or pain, I think, if we could all, take it back, understand, our grandparents or our parents or whoever raised us, that can also help us heal, because a lot of things that have been passed down from, older generation that we don't understand. You know what I'm saying? So that's, one
Mark,
point. So any last thought?
Mark, I just want to, as you touch on that, as my Haitian brother, I'm Dominican, or, Dominican
Nice.
descent, from the island of La Hispaniola.
Yes,
I
sir.
just got back from Ghana. And
Okay.
I got back specifically last week. I was at Elmina Castle, which is the biggest slave castle in West Africa. And when you talk about going back and understanding and getting and really understanding that what you're dealing with is nothing compared to your ancestors. Right. And then seeing the trauma that came from that, it really hits home. And so, I just wanted to bring that up. And two,
absolutely.
As an attorney, sometimes when you get a case, you look at the case from trial, right? And if the case looks good at the trial level, meaning that it's really hard for the prosecutor to prove, then you have a certain swag understanding of the case. If it's really hard, you talk to the prosecutor in a certain way. You're like, let's try to work this out, right?
Yeah.
I see people like that. I see family like that. I saw my grandmother, who I love dearly, and we had many clashes, take her last breath in front of me, right? So when you see someone take their last breath in front of you, you tell yourself, wow, there were so many moments that were wasted.
I know.
Because of disagreements, or because we didn't, get along on certain issues. And that helps me connect with people on a more human level.
Absolutely.
And I think, that extends to family, friends, parents, children.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. Any last thought this time? I know we're running out of time.
Yeah, I'll try to be quick. I spend my life trying to be the freest version of myself. A lot of that means a lot of times we end up putting ourselves in cages because of the choices we make or choices that we've made 20 years ago that still drive us today. And so I'm intentional about making new decisions, even if it's the exact same decision. And so love what you're doing, love what's in the book, love the connection that the choices I make today and how I choose to do with these things can set my family and my legacy free. And so just encourage everybody, even if it's the same decision, make new decisions today. Thank you, brother. Thank you for
All right,
me.
fellas, thank you so much for joining in.
Peace, King.
I appreciate y'all. All right, so continue the work you guys are doing. It's amazing.
All right. It was a pleasure, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, guys.
Peace.
Thank you. All right.